It was the knock that surprised me most. 3 soft taps on the door, just after 4 o'clock, on a gray afternoon when I was expecting no one at all. I remember I had flour on my hands. I remember the kettle had just begun to think about boiling, that low murmur it makes before the whistle. I remember wiping my palms on my apron and wondering, in the mild way you wonder about small things, who on earth would be walking all the way down my lane in weather like this. And when I opened the door, there was a young woman standing on my step, perhaps 20, rain in her hair, a canvas bag over one shoulder, and a look on her face that I could not read at all, hopeful and frightened, and something else, something that made my old heart go very still. She said, "I'm sorry to just turn up like this." Her voice shook a little. "But I think you might be my grandmother. I think you're my mum's mum." Her name was Katie. The kettle chose that moment to start its whistle, small and far away behind me. And I stood there in the doorway with the cold coming in, and 40 years turned over in me all at once, quiet as a page. I did not cry, not then. I simply said the only thing there was to say. I said, "You'd better come in out of the rain, love. The tea's just made." But all of that can wait until the morning. Because right now, none of it needs anything from you. Not the knock, not the rain, not the long story that follows. Right now, there is only you and the soft weight of your blanket and the slow, easy rise and fall of your own breathing. So let yourself settle a little deeper into the pillow. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let your jaw soften and your hands grow heavy and warm against the sheets. I'm going to tell you the whole of it slowly from the beginning. There is nothing for you to do but listen and drift, and let the day fall gently away behind you. Let me begin. My name doesn't matter very much for a story like this. I am 68 years old, and I live alone, quite happily, in a low stone cottage called Larkspur, at the end of a lane so narrow the hedges meet overhead in summer and make a green tunnel of it. My husband, George, planted the larkspur that gave the cottage its name 40 years ago, all along the front path, tall spires of it in blue and violet. He has been gone 6 years now, but the larkspur comes up every June without fail, taller than ever, and I have never had the heart to thin it. I tell you this so that you understand from the start. I am not a lonely woman, and this is not a sad story. I have my garden and my hens and my Tuesdays at the village hall, and the small brown wren who nests in the porch and scolds me every morning as if I were a stranger in my own home. But I did have one sorrow tucked away where I rarely looked at it, and her name was Katie, my daughter. before I tell you about Katie, take a slow breath with me. In gently through the nose, and out long and soft, like a sigh at the end of a good day. There is no hurry in this story at all. Katie was my only child, a bright, quick, headstrong girl, all elbows and opinions, who could argue the birds down from the trees. We were so alike, she and I, that was the trouble, really. We were so alike that we struck sparks off one another, the way two flints will. When she was 19, she fell in love with a young man, her father, and I thought was wrong for her. I say that now, and it sounds so small, so foolish, and it was. But at the time, it felt enormous. There were words said in a hot kitchen on a summer evening, words that neither of us truly meant, but neither of us knew how to take back. She left to be with him, and I, being proud and being frightened and being so certain I was right, did not go after her the way a mother should. I let a silence grow. I told myself she would come round. She told herself, I expect, the very same thing about me. And that is how it happens, you know. Not with a great slamming of doors, just with two stubborn people each waiting for the other to write first. A birthday missed, then a Christmas, then a year, and then somehow, impossibly, another. The silence grew a skin over it, and the longer it went on, the harder it became to be the one to break it. Let your eyes close now, if they haven't already. There is nothing more you need to see, just my voice, and the quiet, and the slow unspooling of the story. I did try in the end. When George fell ill, I wrote to the last address I had for her, a long letter, full of all the soft things I should have said years before. But she had moved on from there, and the letter came back to me unopened, with a stranger's hand scrawled across it. Not known at this address. I sat with that returned letter a long time, and then I put it in the bureau drawer, and I made my peace with the quiet, the way you learn to make your peace with most things if you live long enough. I told myself she was well and happy, and that somewhere out in the wide world she thought of me kindly. I hoped it was true. Mostly, I believed it. What I did not know, all those quiet years, was that I had a granddaughter. Her name is Wren, the very same name, near enough, as the little bird in my porch, though she did not know that when she came. And when I told her, she laughed and said perhaps it was in the blood. So let us go back to the doorstep, to the girl with the rain in her hair. Now that you are warm and drowsy and ready for the gentle part. I brought her in out of the wet. I sat her by the range in George's old chair, and I put a cup of tea into her cold hands before either of us tried to say a single serious word. That is the wisdom of a long life, if it teaches you anything. When a thing is too big for words, you reach first for the kettle. She warmed her hands on the cup. She had cold hands, poor love, from the long walk down the lane. And I fussed a little, the way you do, fetching a second cushion and setting more bread to toast, glad of small things to do while the big thing settled between us. And I watched her when she wasn't looking, the set of her shoulders, the way she held her cup with both hands. There was so much of Katie in her that it made my breath catch, and so much that was entirely her own, a whole new person grown up in the world while I sat here minding my hens. And slowly, in the soft light of the kitchen, with the rain running down the window, she began to tell me, "Breathe in now, slow and easy, and out, softer still. Feel how heavy your arms have grown, how warm. There is nothing to carry here, only the next quiet word, and the next." Katie, she told me, had been happy. That was the first gift Wren gave me, sitting there in the firelight, and I have treasured it every day since. My daughter had built a good life, far away in a northern city by the sea. The young man we had worried about had turned out steady and kind after all, and had stayed steady and kind for 20 years. And they had raised this girl together in a little house that smelled, Wren said, of rain and toast and paint. Katie had become a teacher of small children, the ones just starting school. She was, by every account, wonderful at it, the sort of teacher a child remembers all their life. And she had talked about me. That was the second gift, and the one that undid me. Wren said her mother used to tell her stories of a cottage at the end of a green lane, of a garden full of blue flowers, of hens with names, and a grandmother who could bake bread and knew the song of every bird. Bedtime stories, Wren said. She had grown up on the story of me, and had half believed I was invented, a person out of a picture book, until she grew old enough to understand that I was real and estranged and quietly missed. Mum always meant to bring me, Wren said, looking down into her tea. She always said one day, when the time was right, when she'd worked out what to say. And here is the part that could be a sad part if we let it. But we are not going to let it, because your daughter and your granddaughter and this warm kitchen deserve better than that. Katie had passed away the winter before, quite suddenly, quite gently, in her sleep. She had not had a long illness. She had simply gone to bed one night tired and not woken, the way we all half hope to when it is finally our time. I held that news the way you hold something too hot and too precious at once. My girl was gone, and I had not mended it in time, and that is a grief that does not fully leave you. I will not pretend to you that it does. But grief and sweetness can sit in the same cup, you know. I have learned that in a long life. And what Wren said next poured all the sweetness in. Let yourself drift a little here. You don't need to hold on to every word. Let them wash over you, warm and slow, like the sound of rain on a roof when you are safe and dry beneath it. Among her mother's things, Wren said she had found a shoebox. And in the shoebox were letters and photographs, and a child's drawings gone soft at the folds. Photographs of a garden full of larkspur, a note in George's hand, and on a slip of paper, in Katie's own writing, an address. This address, my address, kept all those years, copied and recopied each time it might have faded, as if my daughter had never quite been able to let the thread of it break. She kept the way back, Wren said softly. She just never quite walked it, so I thought I would. And she reached into her canvas bag, the one still damp from the rain, and she brought out that very shoebox and set it on my kitchen table between us. Now let us pause, you and I, just here in the warm. Breathe in, slow and soft, and out, slower still. Feel the bed holding you completely, so that you do not have to hold yourself up at all. There is nowhere to be tonight. There is nothing to decide. Just the next gentle word. We opened the box together, my granddaughter and I. As the evening came down blue outside the window, there were the photographs first. Katie at 6, gap-toothed and triumphant on a bicycle. Katie at 11, cross-legged in the larkspur, holding a hen far too tightly. Katie in her school uniform, scowling at the camera the way she scowled at the whole world in those years, though I could see now, as I could not see then, the softness underneath the scowl. And a photograph I did not know existed. Katie, grown, perhaps 30, with a small girl on her lap. The small girl had my mother's dark eyes, and a wren of her own embroidered on the collar of her little dress. Wren at 3, on a knee I had never sat beside. I traced my daughter's face with one old finger, and Wren, watching me, said very gently, "You can keep that one out if you like, on the mantel. She'd want to be here." So we did. We stood that photograph up on the mantelpiece, beside the one of George, and the two of them have kept each other company ever since. Let your breathing go soft now. In and out. There is such a tenderness in this, and you may let it fill you, the way warmth fills a room when someone lights the lamps. We talked until the fire burned low, and I had to feed it again. Wren told me everything, and I drank it in the way dry ground drinks the first rain of autumn. What her mother's laugh had sounded like at the end. How she took her tea. The songs she sang while she cooked. Half of them songs I had sung to her 40 years before in a kitchen much like this one. And I told Wren my half of it. The stories only I could give her now. What Katie was like as a baby, the exact weight and warmth of her. How she learned to walk by holding the tails of the old dog we had then, the blue dress I made her for a village dance that she wore until it fell to pieces, the way she hated the crusts on her bread and would hide them under the rim of her plate, thinking I never saw. All the small, true things, the ones that live in no shoebox, only in a mother's keeping, waiting for someone to come and ask. I brought down the old biscuit tin then, the one with the faded roses on the lid, and inside it still were Katie's first shoes and a curl of her baby hair in a twist of tissue paper, and a birthday card she had made me when she was 7, all crooked letters and too much glitter. Wren held that card for a long while, running her thumb over her mother's small, careful writing, and neither of us said a word, and neither of us needed to. 3 of us at that table, really, though you could only see 2. Katie was there in every story, passing between us, being handed back and forth like something warm we were both at last allowed to hold. Breathe in, slow and easy, and out, letting your whole body grow heavier and softer against the bed. You are doing so beautifully at letting go. Wren stayed the night, of course. I made up the little back bedroom that had been Katie's and had waited all these years with its faded blue curtains for someone to sleep there again. In the morning, I heard her up before me and came down to find she had let the hens out and filled the kettle, moving about my kitchen as though she had always known it, as though her feet remembered a floor they had never walked. She was going to stay a few days, she said, over breakfast. And then she wondered, a little shy, could she perhaps come back at weekends sometimes, to learn the garden, to learn the birds, to be taught, she said, all the things her mum had run out of time to teach her. I said yes before she had finished asking. I have said yes to every visit since. She comes most weekends now, my Wren. She has learned the larkspur, and which of the hens will sit on your lap, and the difference between the wren's song and the robin's. She has her mother's quick hands and her mother's stubborn chin, and sometimes she says a thing so exactly the way Katie would have said it that I have to turn to the sink a moment, and she pretends not to notice and pours the tea. The shoebox lives on the dresser now, open, no longer a thing to be hidden. And every so often we take out one more photograph and find it a home on the wall, so that slowly, month by month, my little cottage is filling up with the daughter I lost and the years I missed, hung gently in the light where I can see them every day. That is the whole of it. That is the story of the gray afternoon a stranger knocked on my door and turned out to be the family I did not know had been kept safe for me all along, at the bottom of a shoebox, at the end of a green lane. So let it settle over you now, soft and warm, all of it. The knock, the rain, the tea going cold and warm again, the three of us at the table. Let it become a kind of blanket, and let it be enough. You have nothing to decide tonight. No lane to walk, no letter to write, no silence to mend. It is all already mended here in the story, and you may simply rest inside it. There is only the warmth of your bed, and the soft dark of your room, and the slow tide of your own breathing, carrying you gently out. Breathe in slow and easy, and out slower still. You are safe. You are warm. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Let the next breath be even softer than the last, and the next softer still. Rest now, sleep now. I will keep the kettle warm, and the light on in the window, and the little bird singing in the porch, and I will be here telling quiet stories whenever you need somewhere gentle to go. Good night,